Today we have a pretty exciting video on our hands. We have the GR Corolla versus the FL5 Civic Type R. We're also joined today by Albo. Oof, bit of wheel spin there. And straight away, I'm noticing the mid corner is really stable. The entry is really strong with the turn in, but once we get to the mid corner, it's kind of wobbling around a little bit with that high roll center. Whew. Push it pretty hard. Good
that
on, man.
Was awesome.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Man. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a pretty exciting video on our hands. We have the GR Corolla versus the FL5 Civic Type R. We're also joined today by Albo.
Hey everybody.
So very cool opportunity, drive together. We have these two cars courtesy of Omaren, which have been very kind to us in the past, lending us cars to choose and test out before. So big thank you to those guys. And today we're here at Mt Tsukuba, which I've never been to before, but I think you've ridden once or twice in the past, right?
Yeah, so I've come here maybe 4 or 5 times in the past. It's been several years since I've come here, but what I do remember is the road is not super steep, like uphill or downhill. There's some parts where you have like some uphill portions and some downhill portions, but for the most part, it's quite flat. There's just a lot of winding corners, so it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, it looks like a great place for us to test out the balance of the car on a pretty quality touge, because sometimes you can find some sketchy ones across Japan, but this one seems to be pretty good. So looking forward to testing them. This is the sort of two rival cars from the different manufacturers, Toyota and Honda.
Similar price.
Similar price point. So it'll be very interesting to see how they compare, taking them out on the road. Obviously there's some pretty key differences in terms of front wheel drive versus all wheel drive and 4-cylinder versus 3-cylinder, but
also size wise, I mean, just coming here, I noticed a big difference in the size.
We checked out the Shogun show, which in English is like the registration paper, just to get a feel for like, you know, what we're dealing with here. And we noticed that the FL5 was actually quite a bit wider and quite a bit longer. This was quite a bit higher. Let's see how that plays out as we drive. All right, ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's feel this out. We've driven it up here on the highway, but time to hit the touge and just see what this car can really do. Oof. The entry is really strong with the turn in, but once we get to the mid corner, it's kind of wobbling around a little bit with that high roll center. But man, that turbo is so fun to play with. Off throttle there, just giving you that sound. So much confidence on the way in, just you can really throw the car in on entry. Torque is pretty decent, just all second gear, really pulling well. But we do have a little bit of I think a weak point just in the mid corner. We go in well, we go in quick. We end up just having a bit of floatiness and body roll in that mid part. Kind of a limiting factor in terms of how we could go a little bit quicker. Direction change is fantastic though. Up and over these crests and back and forth with the left and rights, the car does a really nice job keeping the balance. Yeah, I love the sound of this thing. It's just the interior sounds coming through from the turbo and from the motor. Just so much fun. I'm quite busy on this steering wheel just through the bumps. Like from this point onwards here, when the lock's in, I'm moving the steering wheel a lot, trying to fight the car to go where I want it to go. It does have pretty good grip, I would say, with the dimensions of this car that we've got. I think it's kind of pretty maximized right now. So daily driving the Corolla now, super easy to drive in traffic. Clutch is super light, gears easy to engage. First impressions of the interior, I'm kind of seeing that it's a little bit lower spec potentially than the FL5, just in terms of the material they've used. There's no Alcantara on the steering wheel. There is a little bit here on the seat, but the steering wheel itself, it's kind of like the more like fake leather type, which it doesn't look bad, to be honest. For the standards of Toyota interiors over the last few years, they have gotten a lot better. I do like the interior in here. I just think it's maybe a little bit below the spec of the FL5. We have a great infotainment system with a big screen. So for me, that's a must really. I really like the interior of cars to be practical and like sort of comfortable. So I'm really finding that at least on the technology side of things, they've got CarPlay and some really nice sort of creature comforts. So big tick on that front. The display, it's also pretty nice too. Super easy to read what gear I'm in. It's kind of race car vibes. We've got like the tacho around the outside of the gear in the middle. Really like that. The transmission feel is, yeah, it's notchy, but not in like a mechanical kind of way, in sort of like a little bit plasticky kind of way even. It's hard to describe it exactly. This is a really cool feature down here. This changes the ratio in which the power is delivered to the front and rear wheels. So regular driving, we're in 60-40, which is 60 to the front, 40 to the rear. That's a pretty nice sort of even split. If we turn the dial, we can get the car into 30-70, which now puts 70% of the power to the rear. This is a really cool feature because you're driving an all-wheel drive, but you can kind of bias the characteristics towards being more front wheel or more rear wheel. This is really cool, I think, and my first time to have this option in a car. I love that. Sound is a really big tick for me with this car. I love the sound of the motor revving through. I love the sound of hitting the limiter, which I did before unintentionally. Yeah, I just love the response. Like this car, when you get on power, there is a slight delay before the turbo engages, but once it's on, you just have four wheels pulling the car. So dynamic, the engagement. I think the FL5 doesn't feel as quick off just instant acceleration. It pulls harder once you're in, but the instant jump with this four wheel is fantastic. So I do really like that off the line. The ride quality is pretty good. It's definitely not harsh, but it's still firm enough to where you feel like the suspension's sporty. Styling wise, the inside of this thing, I kind of like it. GR has got a pretty distinct design language, and I can see it coming through in this car. And the base of this car was obviously not a sports car, but with all the GR parts on it, it does have that cool flavor to it now, which is quite nice. All right, guys, let's take the FL5 out, see how this feels in comparison. Oof, bit of wheel spin there. And straight away, I'm noticing the mid corner is really stable. A little bit less direct on entry than the Corolla. Wow, we've got so much stability. I could even do one-handed right now. It's night and day, honestly. Yeah, the steering actually gets heavier as you go in quicker. It's really, really confidence boosting. You feel so much detail. Yeah, we've just got a lot of ability to feel planted in the mid corner. I just throw it in here. A little bit more numb on entry, but then we're just on a rail all the way through. It's certainly a lot more of a gradual linear progression in terms of how the steering works. The Corolla was so pointy on the way in, and then we kind of lost a bit of the so much grip and so much confidence in this mid-corner. Really feeling the difference from, one, the car just being lower and wider, but two, the tires being that much wider as well. We've got an extra, we're running 265 on the front here versus 235 on the front over there. It's very, 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 very telling, the difference in terms of grip that's available. No issues with torque steer. Man, this thing just feels so stable, it's crazy. On a road this narrow and tight, I've just got really so much trust in the car to hang on to the skinny bit of pavement between these trees here. It's just super, super comforting, to be honest. Daily driving this car, super, super easy. The torque steer's a little bit prevalent, just off the line really, in terms of daily driving. That's the only place I've really noticed it. Once you're sort of above like sort of 40, 50 Ks, you're out of the torque steer problems for the most part. It's super comfortable now, just cruising through low speed. I feel like the interior, I've said this before, but I feel like the interior here is like pretty premium, you know, pretty minimalist race car style. Everything that you need is here. And you don't feel like you're sacrificing anything to drive a sports car like this, you know, from a daily standpoint. So super great. Yeah, I won't spend too much time on this because I do have a review previously where we went back to back on the FL5 versus the new Nissan Z. I went more in depth in that one just in terms of how this car feels. But yeah, overall, just it's nice to back this against the Corolla and really feel like what's the standout points, because obviously I felt them against the Z, but here, man, this mid corner, it's insane just how planted and stable it is. The infotainment as well, nice having CarPlay. You know, cruising back from the touge, now I'm able to just kind of enjoy having all the creature comforts available, and I don't feel like I'm driving back in my touge car. I feel like I'm just driving back in a nice, comfortable, sporty car that, you know, I'm not breaking my back to get home in. I'm cruising and enjoying the drive home as well. Push it pretty hard. Good on, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Man.
That was awesome.
That was great. Being able to go back and forth in these two cars, just straight one after the other.
Yep, and they're really, really different.
They are, yeah. Yeah, it was great to have that comparison, because I think they're similar enough in their specs and things like that, that you kind of have some gap between and think, oh yeah, they're pretty much the same car.
Yep.
They're not the same car.
Not at all.
Not at all.
There's a big difference,
yeah.
I think.
So yeah, just overall, I think, you know, first impressions were kind of true as we went on with the drive from the highway and stuff, feeling that the FL5 just has amazing capability in the mid corner. It dominated this touge. Unbelievable tuning, I think, and all the pieces that went into this car. It's really at home on a road like this. Mm-hmm. The GR Corolla, as I said, I found like the acceleration was great. I enjoyed the four-wheel drive system, but it was a bit outmatched here, not just from the performance side, but even just the proportions of the car and stuff didn't quite suit these tight, nimble corners. So still a great car. I loved both of them for different reasons, but clear winner today here on the touge, and I think we're kind of in the same boat with that impression, right?
I think the FL5 is a class above. I think if you really, really need all-wheel drive, such as if you're in a country where this is your primary car and you're going to drive it in the winter and there's going to be a lot of snow, I can imagine the four-wheel drive.
And it's got its advantage, right?
Yeah,
pretty clearly.
That would be quite good. But if for any other situation, pretty much, like any other use case, I think the FL5 is much better.
Right, like we said, even the interior was just felt a bit roomier, a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Even away from the performance side. So yeah, I think you're right. It kind of feels like it does everything just a little bit better, especially for what we'd buy a sports car like the Type R, like the GR for. You want the performance to be like the standout feature.
And the way it drives, for me, the biggest difference was actually the way it drives. Like the GR Corolla feels really fast. The way the boost kicks in, it's like a hammer. Like you just get rocketed forward.
Just delivery is pretty aggressive. Yeah.
This one, it actually has a lot of power, and it feels like it's pulling you through the corner because it's front wheel drive. You're like getting pulled forward. But what I noticed is in the corners, the more you turn, the tighter it gets.
Yeah, in this one, right?
Yeah, it kind of dives into each corner. Whereas this, I was finding myself like mid corner, I need to increase the input. So I was finding instead of holding it up here, I was holding it lower so I could have a little bit more leverage
and fight it through the mid corner and stuff.
And it was actually a little bit exhausting. Actually, if you compare them directly, I felt like the GR Corolla was a little bit exhausting to drive.
Yeah, I feel the same, and I think a good feature of the Type R is the fact that the steering gets heavier as you go quicker. So as you're pushing it harder in that mid corner, you're being supported by the feedback being a bit more manageable and a bit clearer on the detail. Because if the steering's too light, you're kind of moving it a lot and not getting a whole heap of response. But the car like kind of goes with you into pushing and into chilling. It's kind of alive in that way. It's going to respond to what you're doing. This one, as you say, like it's just a little bit more work. You have to do that rather than the car's going to assist you with that. So yeah. Anyway, pretty clear outcome, I think, on the touge from that standpoint. So we'll go ahead to the scoreboard now to finish off our final review of the car. So go and check that out. Street driver versus pro driver, final details. Again, big thank you to Omaren, big thank you to Albo. It's been a great time here driving these cars on such an amazing road. I felt like I was DK today, Tsuchiya, going through some hot version, some great roads, and yeah, some great cars. So
I can't believe we get to do this. Like literally drive these mountain roads in Japan with these new JDM classics.
Yeah.
This is the best job ever.
100%. All right, thanks guys for tuning in. Catch us next week, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Stay tuned for the next video.